Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guest is Whitney Sherman, illustrator, designer, and founding director of the MFA in Illustration Practice program at the Maryland Institute College of Art. It's hard to know if your attempts at establishing or building upon a creative practice will work. As Whitney and I discuss, you'll never know if you don't try. Among the topics, Whitney talks about how she began her distinguished career as an educator. She shares what it takes to survive a creative practice. And Whitney points out why artists of any discipline should not be afraid of failure. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
I took a look at the podcast page last night, and you've got some great recordings there.
Yeah, well, some folks that you definitely know. Jaleen Grove, for example. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of overlaps. But, that's just sort of how it goes, right? When two people exist in the same industry for long enough, you a little longer than me, these kinds of things happen.
Yeah, I was listening to Emily Flake. She was a former student of mine, and
right.
That was great to see her.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Micah and that. It's been a minute.
I know.
I was trying to remember the last time we saw each other, because, I've been to Micah a couple of times. I don't remember if it was your MFA program that I spoke to the students, or was it their undergraduate?
Yeah, so, and I remember the building that we were in because we've been in two different buildings, and it was the second one. So it's within the last, I'd say 5 to 7 years. COVID has kind of wrecked my timeline in terms of figuring out, when did that happen? Same.
I did it twice, once for you and once for another teacher. The one for you was great. I mean, it was me and Kristen Nobles, the two of us, art directors, reviewed portfolios. One portfolio I remember very clearly was N.D. Stevenson's.
No, she's undergraduate, or they are undergraduate.
So they are undergraduate. So I reviewed her portfolio maybe for the other teacher, whose name, of course, escapes me at the moment. Of course it does. Age. And yeah, so it was great. I love Micah, as a Baltimore boy. I have to love Micah.
I invited you in to do one-on-one critiques with my second-year students.
Yeah. It was great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first experience at Micah, I was a high school student, and they were doing the portfolio showcase, or whatever it's called, the portfolio review for high school students, where a bunch of schools show up and you visit tables. Mm-hmm. I have to say, I don't know why I never applied to Micah. It just seemed like a really natural fit, and to this day I'm like, why didn't I apply to Micah? Maybe because I had a little bit of a rebellious streak and I wanted to get further away from my family. But
yeah, where did you go?
RISD. So fine.
You're a Marylander?
I'm a Marylander. Are you a Marylander?
No.
But you've been in Baltimore for quite some time.
More than half of my life.
Right. You graduated from Micah in 1971?
That's correct. And then I went back home for a couple of years.
Where's home?
I grew up in northeastern New Jersey.
Okay.
Bergen County. If you know New Jersey, it's Bergen County.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Quite well.
There are foothills there of the top part of the Appalachian Mountains. It's called the Ramapo Mountains. And we lived in an area where if we walked to the end of the street and we looked east, you could see the Empire State Building. It was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches high. Yes. And my dad worked there. My grandfather worked there. My grandmother was born there. So we've always been pretty close to that area. And of course, in high school, if we were doing field trips, we were always going into New York.
Yeah. Why Micah? Why did you go there instead of, whatever, Pratt or SVA or some other place closer?
Well, I was accepted into Parsons, and that was definitely top on my list. But my parents advised me that if I went there, I would have to live at home. And, if you think about that, I would have had to have taken a bus in.
Right.
They would have expected me to come home. Even if I went over to the next town over and got the commuter train in, the trains don't run all night. So
Sure.
I would have been hauling art supplies back and forth.
So it's their
at,
fault.
What,
that you
6
went to
o'clock at
Baltimore.
night, and then everybody that I knew would be calling me on the phone saying, "We're having a great time here in the city. Sorry you can't make it."
We're at CBGB's. See you there. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, you can't get there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I could have stayed with friends in there, but
Sure.
my parents were pretty strict at that point in my life.
Were they like,
Yeah.
no daughter of ours will be a photographer?
No, they really appreciate creativity and support
good.
that. It was really just being an outsider away from the family. My family's pretty tight-knit,
Yeah.
especially making sure girls aren't getting into trouble or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Well, what's all
I
this
was
new?
I'm number 2 in a family of 6 kids,
Okay.
but I was the one that was always stepping outside of the normal boundary of things. Everybody was pretty conservative.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have 3 conservative children, though. They're definitely, all 3 of them are just chomping at the bit at the moment. Like my son is about to go to college. He's going to Temple.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. We're very excited. He's ready. He's out of here. And it's far enough. He's going to stay there. It's far enough that we can bother him if we need to. Or he can bother us if he needs to.
Yeah.
But both of my daughters are like, maybe I'll go to California. Maybe I'll go here. Maybe I'll go there. And like, none of the maybe goes are remotely close to our house.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. It's fine.
Yeah, it's great.
Kids are going to kid, Speaking of kids, so when did you start teaching?
When did I start teaching?
Was it the 70s?
Probably, no. Because I moved back to New Jersey, and I had a degree in photography, but I knew that I didn't want to do that as a job.
Right.
I would do that as a passion pursuit or
Okay.
as my art. I didn't have a dark room. I mean, this is all pre-digital, so you needed a dark room to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have space to do that in my parents' house. So I started drawing again and just doing images out of my head, finding kind of little art markets around where I could display it and maybe sell a few pieces. And I have a lot of other interests like refinishing furniture, sewing, all of these different kinds of things. There was always some place where I could go to be creative, spend
Right.
my creative time doing something.
Sure.
And when I was up there, the jobs that were available to get were design jobs.
Did you, pound the pavement, the classic, you had your portfolio underarm, walking the sidewalks, knocking on doors in New York City?
I didn't go to New York to get a job.
Oh,
I
you
went
just stayed in
local.
New Jersey. All right.
Yeah, I stayed
works.
there. Again, it was a situation of car, living at home, dealing with when are you going to be home for dinner and things
Right.
like that. So, yeah, I went local. My first job was with a screen printer. They did industrial size screen printing. Their screens were like 6 by 8 feet. And they did fabrics and wall coverings. And so my job was to, somebody would come in with maybe a discontinued pattern or a custom pattern, and I would have to do the color separations by hand. So I would hand paint on acetate, which meant I sat in a very large room in an old industrial building in Paterson, New Jersey, painting onto acetate pieces, and then
Right.
they'd take it and they would do the step and repeat.
When you say separations, are you talking about 4-color separations as in on each piece of acetate it's black, but it's a certain level of black that sort of indicates how much of each cyan, magenta, yellow, and black there would be on the pattern?
No, this isn't commercial printing.
Okay.
This is screen printing. And so it's flat colors pretty much. There weren't
Okay.
dot patterns or anything like that we were using. It was all, if you look at wallpaper, it's usually a flat color rather than a dot pattern.
Got it. Did anyone ever come in with like a William Morris level complexity of patterns? And you were like,
no, but that would have been fun.
Yeah, it would have been fun. For folks listening, you should look up William Morris. Amazing patterns. And if you're looking for wallpaper, you should definitely consider a William Morris design.
They don't call it wallpaper. In the industry, it's wall coverings.
Really?
Yes, that was one of the first things I learned.
Okay.
They never refer to it as wallpaper. Us pedestrians do. We pedestrians do.
What's the difference? I guess it's the same as like calling artwork pictures.
I don't know. I can't distinguish.
That's what my family calls it. Like, oh, you're still doing those pictures? Yeah, I'm still painting. Yes, I am still painting. So when did you make your way down to Baltimore then? Or back to Baltimore?
After that job, I got a job working at a greeting card company, a small greeting card company, and that lasted about 6 months. There were just some things going on in that company, so I went on unemployment and, started doing more of these things like I was describing, of refinishing furniture, doing drawings that I would take to art fairs and whatnot and sell them. It was around that time that I started, close to 2 years, I started feeling like there's really nobody here. Anybody that I went to high school with, I'm not bumping into them. And I'm really missing my friends that did stay in Baltimore. So I called up one of my friends and said, I'd really like to come back, but I'm not sure I have the means to be able to get my own apartment. My parents were cool with that at that point in time. So I just grabbed everything that I owned, put it in my Carmen Ghia, and I drove back to Baltimore, and I slept on a friend's couch for, I don't know, maybe six or 8 months before I found a job and got my own apartment. Most all of my friends in college were graphic designers. And so the next job I got was working in a place that did packaging. And so we were designing the packages for things like for Noxel and for Corning and whatnot. Did I answer your question?
No, you did. You did. There's a little bit of like a little digital, like when the Wi-Fi is weak or something, when the internet's kind of, it sounds a little computery. Your voice sounds a little computery. It's usually as a result of like poor internet.
Is it me? My internet, you think?
No, see, now you sound fine.
I know what it is. It's the way I'm facing. I'm sitting on my couch, and this happens on my phone sometimes.
Okay, perfect. Well, you sound great now. So whatever you did,
I just rotate it a little bit.
You're going to be so contorted by the end of this conversation. It's going to be
no, this is great.
You're going to need a yoga session.
I'm comfortable.
Okay, good. What I'm trying to get at is, do you remember what year you started teaching?
Oh, that's right. That's the question that you did ask me, and I went off on another tangent.
I love tangents.
Not
except
uncommon.
when it's in art.
But probably mid-90s.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was back in Baltimore, and I was doing these jobs, and I was asked to come in and do a workshop in the what was then called the Visual Communications Department. And I thought, well, this is great, Again, I think for any of the listeners, they have to really put their mind into, if it's possible for everyone, to put their mind into a pre-digital time.
Oh, sure.
So that makes a big difference when you're talking about, starting into any area, or at least for me, because what the students were learning at that time in graphic design was putting together comprehensives for their design projects, but they were mostly done by hand. Many people were even comping up where the typography would be with a ruling pen, which is a little device that you put ink into or paint into, and you can draw very straight lines, very uniformly straight lines. There was mechanisms for being able to create dummy type that you could transfer, you could rub it off.
Right.
That always depended on what your budget was, whether you could afford to do that or whether you had to make everything by hand. So I was teaching students in the graphic design area how to make comps, either by spending money or by not having to spend any money. And I found that challenge to be really, really interesting. So that kind of got me interested in what else would I want to do in the area of teaching.
Did that presentation like directly lead to, hey, would you like to teach a class?
It did. I think the students liked what I was doing, and the department chair liked that. And so I was then asked, after a few of those kinds of material-based workshops, I was asked to teach as one of 3 faculty in a 3-credit class.
Gotcha.
And that was about different types of publications. So the first faculty would come in and do something like a newspaper or a newsletter layout, something very simple, not multi-page, and then it would go up to a more complex publication. And I was the last one. I did a museum brochure. So it was selecting images, finding type and images that would go together well, having to produce a cover to it, having multi-pages, different types of information, and how you might render that typographically. Yeah, and I did that for years.
Was it Alan who hired you, or did Alan start later? Alan Comport.
Alan Comport was the chair of illustration after I was for 10 years.
Gotcha.
Micah, at that point in time, during the time that we're talking about when I was doing this teaching,
right,
illustration as a department did not exist.
That's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, when did that start?
It was called visual communications, and designers and illustrators were together. And so because of that, over time, the illustration students were a group that I could also teach.
Yeah.
So I went from teaching that partial class to teaching a full class in graphic design and a full class in illustration.
Where in Baltimore did you live at that time? Were you in the city or out?
Yeah,
I've
always, well, no, I was just going to say I've always lived in the city, but that's not true. I did live outside of the city for 6 or 7 years. Let me think. I've got to match it up, right?
Well, the listeners couldn't care less about the geography of Baltimore, but I'm from Baltimore, and I grew up. Yeah. I was born in the city, lived in various parts around the city, kind of like concentrically. So I was born in the city, and as I grew up, I sort of like, if you can imagine a spiral, like going further and further away from the city. So it started in Kearney and Parkville, which is not too far. You just drive down Harford Road into the city, or Bel Air Road, and then or 695, and then it goes out to more like Lutherville and Timonium. At which point I was a high school student, and that's how I got to Micah. The tram was launched, and so I was able to take the light rail, or whatever it's called, from Cockeysville, Lutherville, Timonium area down to the city using the light rail as a kid. And then beyond that was like Towson and then Bel Air and stuff. So I was moving further and further away from the city, and then ultimately, Providence, Rhode Island, New York City, and there you go. But do you remember?
Well, when I went to college, I was living blocks from the school in an area called Bolton Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's just north of what's called Midtown here.
Right.
And then after coming back, same thing, living in Bolton Hill, and eventually moving out to an area called Green Spring Valley, just outside of the Beltway. Yep. Had a little house out there, lived in an area a little even farther out called Woodensburg, which was very near where Channel 67 is, where I had a job there for a while. And then coming back into the city and having a studio here and living out just outside the Beltway, and then driving into my studio.
Yeah.
And then ultimately moving back into the city.
You can't see me, but I got a big smile on my face, and I'm a little jealous. A little bit.
About
I love
what?
Baltimore. It's got its problems, but it's a great town.
Every place has its problems.
It's a weird town. I hope it stays weird. The question then is, you've been teaching, then you end up like leading the undergrad program. Now you're I don't know if the title is correct
Director.
here, but the director of the MFA program, illustration practice. Mm-hmm. Have you ever sat down and just kind of ran the numbers a little bit in your head, how many kids you've taught
Oh, no. It's a lot. I was.
Do you want to take a
I
minute?
was thinking the other
it now? No, I'm
day.
kidding.
I used to be able to recite every single student that I'd ever taught in a
Wow.
class.
Wow.
I could tell you who
Yeah.
they were, and I've lost that a while ago. The other thing I used to do to help me remember names when I was getting to know them was I had a Polaroid SX70, and I would bring it in and I would take pictures of them
Nice.
on the first day. And then I would give them the Polaroid to watch develop and show them how you could push the emulsion around on it to put
Sure.
horns on yourself or sunbeams coming off of your head or whatever. And so it was a really great icebreaker for them and a way for me to keep something like a little toe into photography.
Yeah.
And I was just cleaning out some shelves last weekend and found a bunch of those Polaroids, and it's really awesome to see.
Man, that's a book or a blog or something, man. You got to put that together and share it with the world. Yeah, I've always wanted to. I've as you know, I've visited a ton of schools over the years, and I've substitute taught at Pratt a bunch and other places, Parsons, SVA, and et cetera. There was always that bug. I've always wanted to teach in person. I teach now. I teach digitally, virtually, and I love it. But there is always that little bit of like, man, it'd be so nice to just like walk in and I got a cup of coffee and I'm talking to the kids and we're talking about art and put on some music. Like there's always that like dreamy sort of ideal scenario of like teaching in college, got my cardigan on or whatever the hell. Anyway,
Mr. Rogers.
Yes, 100%. I already have my outfit picked out. I swear to God, that's true. But I suspect it's not always Mr. Rogers, with a cup of coffee, playing classical music, teaching kids how to draw the model. So that bug kind of died down until recently. SCAD asked me to talk to some classes and do basically like a little bit of a guest, daytime teaching. So I talked to a couple of classes throughout the day, and it was just a blast. And they wanted me to teach there. They were recruiting me. Didn't work out. They're too far away. I love where I live, and there's just too much going on. So respectfully passed, but did it spark that fire again. And I know that for a day, it can be a lot of fun. But for a career, I'm sure there's a lot that you're thinking in your head right now, like, gosh, dude, you don't even know the half of it. So what's the other half of it? For folks listening who maybe want to teach, what is that other half that I'm not I'm not thinking about in my daydreams?
You really have to consider that there are several levels to be engaged as an academic.
Right.
You can be an adjunct.
Sure.
You go in and you teach, and that's why I was doing it for so many years as an adjunct. I was adjunct for 7 years. It's the juice,
Sure.
It's like I'd be at home. My studio is in my home, so I go to work in my home, and then I leave work into my home, and to have a place to go to that was outside of my studio, my house, was necessary and really exciting. That was the juice to, go and be with these people that have a lot of questions, and they're eager, and they ask me questions that I'm like, that's so great that I have to think about this and find a way to condense that into something that would be helpful to them.
Yeah.
All of my experience. When you go into teaching full time, you have the responsibilities. You have committees, and you're part of a larger group, and
right.
you're committed to more time in the classroom. And then there's the level of management of running something.
Yeah.
So I was adjunct for 7 years, and then was recruited to chair the undergraduate department.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for 10 years. And while I was doing that, I was also experiencing students at that point in time thinking, do I want to go to graduate school? Where would I go for graduate school? And so I put together a document. This is about 7 years into chairing. Mm-hmm. I put together a document that looked at every single school that offered some type of illustration at the graduate level. I think it was 20 different schools that I looked at. Some of them were like really, really obscure, like nautical illustration at Dartmouth. And they
Nice.
have about 6 students in that program.
Okay.
At least at that point in time, they
Right.
did. And I published all of that. I gave it to the Society of Illustrators to say, if there's something you can do with this, for just to share it, that'd be great. But I used it to think about what's missing. This is another thing that I did, was survey at one of the icons where the illustrators that were attending that particular illustration conference, where they came from. Like, did they study illustration before they started doing it professionally? And I found out that a great majority of people who were doing illustration professionally and doing well at it came from all kinds of different places,
Sure.
language studies or economics or
Journalism.
everywhere. And it wasn't just adjacent practices like animation or graphic design or things like that. And so that got me really interested in thinking, well, there have to be a lot of people out there that would want to do that, either to have that cohort, the creative cohort, to be around, or to get that degree that at that point in time was beginning to be required if you wanted to teach anywhere.
Right.
And that really reflected a lot of who I am as a practitioner. As I mentioned, I go to school and get a degree in photography, but I'm hanging out with all the graphic design students, picking up stuff that way, always drawn. So it was very easy for me to transition over into illustration. I like refurnishing furniture, sewing. I mean, I've got a lot of interests that I get to.
I like the idea of refurnishing furniture. I've never really done it, but I love the idea of it. I watch a lot of Instagram reels about it.
Yeah,
I don't know if that counts.
There you go. Yeah.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation. Congratulations on winning the Distinguished Educator in the Arts Award from the Society, speaking
Thank
of the
you.
Society, 2021.
Yeah.
Did that give you an opportunity to sort of reflect back on everything that you've already done in the education space?
It happened during COVID. So the whole thing, usually you go up to the Society and there's a whole, thing that they do up there. And none of that was all happening on Zoom. And it was, for me, Zoom was such a it's sort of like these headphones. It's a very disorienting experience to just not feel that connection. And it kind of ties in with what you were bringing up earlier about going into the classroom and teaching versus teaching online.
I could just imagine people are going like, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
It was really, from my end, it was just broadcasting. There was no way for me to really grasp, was anybody hearing me? I think I could see if there were attendees, but I had a much more rewarding experience giving a talk for the Norman Rockwell Museum online.
Sure.
That was great because they really have that down, and they really know how to encourage the interaction of the audience. They will take questions and then repeat them to you so that you can answer those questions for their audience. But
Stephanie Plunkett knows what she's doing up there. Another podcast guest. She's great.
Yeah. So doing that award ceremony was, if you're doing it in person, you're getting to hang out afterwards and chat with people. Right. And that just didn't happen.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
But
me too.
Still.
As a matter of fact, I just got the certificate and the plexiglass award. It had been in a closet up there at the Society since 2021.
Wait, what? And you just received it?
I just got it. Yeah, because I asked them. I said, wasn't I supposed to get one of those? And they said, oh, yeah, we know where it is.
Somewhere Terry Brown is like, oh, thank God I don't have to deal with that stuff anymore. He was another podcast guest. Talked about the Society in the 80s and whatnot. I know you know who he is. Oh, wow. Well, that's funny. Somehow that feels apropos of the illustration world. You win this award and you wait 3 years to get it, or whatever, 5 years to get it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, speaking of time and history and all of that, illustration these days doesn't quite look like it did in the 70s or 80s or 90s. It's changed, and it's certainly changed through your career as an educator. Historically, illustration, no matter what has happened in the world, stays put. It has its ups and downs, but it's survived every single thing up until today. It's going to survive AI. It's going to survive whatever the hell is happening in the world these days. Where are you on this front? On where illustration is going, where it's come from? How do you talk about it with your students?
Well, when I talk about illustration with my students, I'm usually talking about their illustration, and they're very focused on what they want to accomplish. I mean, if someone wants to do something, whether it's illustration or anything else, and they're invested in it and they're passionate about it, their focus is going to be less on any of the restrictions that anyone that's been in that practice for a while is seeing. They're
Right.
not seeing those things. And that's the way things survive, is by people not looking at what happened before and going, oh no, that means that I can't. They're thinking that I want to, and I'm there to support that.
Yep.
This ties back into the whole concept of what the graduate program that I founded is about. And that is, illustration is going in lots of different directions. We can talk about how it's happening right now in different areas, but I can't dictate, I can't predict where it's going to be in 5 years. And I tell every single one of my students that. You know where it is now, you know what you want to do now, but you're not going to know what influencers are going to change it and maybe influence you. Right. A lot of it is in your hands and a lot of it is out of your hands. The economy is going to dictate a lot, when there's no money, or people aren't buying magazines, magazine sales go down, which means the ad money that's coming in to pay for writing and illustration and photography that's going to go in there, or the art director's salary. Those are things that are kind of outside of a lot of our hands, all of us in creative fields.
Right.
But the other thing that I tell them is that to have a broader footprint is better for you, because when one thing is down, something else will be up. And if you are comfortable with moving, shifting, pivoting, you're going to survive it. You're going to survive your desire
Absolutely.
to be able to practice that. You're going to survive the world, the economy, politics, whatever is really having an influence on the ability for any of us to make things.
Right.
Making covers everything in my mind. Making is doing anything that didn't exist before and bringing it into the world. And so, you can call it whatever you want. Being creative. You can call it something more specific, like being an illustrator. But that ability to make and be creative is something that takes tenacity and an interest. You really have to want to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Notice I haven't really asked you anything specifically about AI.
Well, it's a hard topic to talk about because it's changing as we're speaking right now.
Right.
AI it's just on the move.
As listeners of this podcast know, I'm staunchly against anything AI related. And I as it currently stands today, there are a lot of problems, environmental problems, copyright problems. It's just like everything around
Huge.
It's built on sands of thievery. It's not good on any front. I don't see any sort of line of maybe if we do it this way or that way or the other way. What are they doing behind the scenes? We don't know. For example, Midjourney, you create a piece of art through Midjourney, they own your art forever. It's in the terms of service. And they're not the only ones. You know what I mean? So like I'm not saying like if I used a Winsor Newton cadmium yellow, Winsor Newton doesn't own my painting.
Yeah. The model is the problem.
Oh yeah.
If the framework is, it's like if you build a house and the studs aren't put together well, the house isn't going to last long.
Right. Or you rip the studs out from the house next door.
Exactly. It's not attractive either. I mean,
No.
There are a lot of people that like it for the fact that it seems magical to them. But those are the people that aren't aware of what it takes to actually to be able to create something.
Right.
And that's a sad thing. I don't know if there's a remedy for that attitude, but things like the environmental impact are things that I think more people can understand. If they're not creative, they can understand that it's
Sure.
Hurting the environment. The environment is everybody's world. The creative
exactly.
part is something that all of us who do creative things, that's sort of more our worry, that we have to help people understand this is
Exactly.
and finding metaphors like that, like stealing parts of somebody else's house to build your own house, something that you can have it in their terms they can understand.
Yeah. Well, Whitney, this has been great. And I can't believe an hour has gone by already. I feel like we haven't even started talking yet. It's been such a joy chatting with you. I have one last question for you. That is for illustrators and designers and any creative type out there who's listening in. What would you like to share with them? What would be one last word of advice or insight or wisdom or anything that you'd like to say to them directly?
I guess my words of encouragement would be to, if you want it, go get it. Go after it. Do it. Give it a try. You're not going to know until you try. Mm-hmm. I advocate for smart failures, to go out, try something. If it doesn't work, that's okay. That's okay.
To learn more about Whitney, visit whitneysherman.com. If you find value in this podcast, you can support it by subscribing to my best-selling Substack. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you will access hundreds of articles on the art, practice, and history of illustration, unlock bonus podcast episodes called Extra Credit, and connect with other members of the ID community. Join me on Substack by visiting illustrationdept.substack.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.